Okay, I can see participants are starting to come in. We'll leave it a minute or two to make sure everyone can come in. Anyone who's already joined, well done for your lightning quick reactions, but we'll give everyone a chance. Thank you for coming along.
Emma's here, Tom's here.
I'll probably say this message a couple of times, but we will have a quick Q&A at the end of this session. So if you have any questions from the off before we even get into the slides, feel free to put them in there. If we cover it as we go through, obviously you'll know, but I'll put that message out a couple of times that any and all questions are invited as we go through these slides, and the both of us are here to help. Okay, I think we'll get started on some introductions. So thank you very much for coming along to this webinar, e-commerce tips to supercharge growth in 2023. We're here for the next 45 minutes or so, maybe 5 minutes longer, 5 minutes shorter possibly, but we'll be discussing various tips that we can give you from the world of email and web, really to push forward 2023. A very brief agenda as to what we're going to be covering today. We'll give a quick introduction to who we are before we get into the bulk of what we're talking about. 7 ways email can help to supercharge growth in 2023, and how website design can do the same thing. And as mentioned, there will be an opportunity for a few questions and answers at the end, if indeed you have any. A quick introduction to myself and to Jarrang. So my name is Ben Hocking. I'm a client success manager here at Jarrang. We are a specialized email marketing agency founded 20 years ago this year, founded in 2003. We provide our clients with expertise, capacity, and support to help them achieve their marketing objectives, specifically in the sphere of email marketing. And I'll hand over briefly to my co-presenter for today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kashif. I'm the lead designer at JH. We're the longest serving Magento solutions partner in the UK. We are a long-standing Adobe Gold partner and Adobe Commerce specialist. The most decorated agency globally at the Magento Imagine Awards. We are authors of the most Magento 2 certifications, and we are proud organizers of Meet Magento UK. Back to you, man.
Thank you very much. So the way that we'll do this, because we're both essentially looking at the same goal here, but from 2 different sources, 2 different avenues. So I'm going to go through half of the tips that we have that are email specific. I'll hand back over to Kashif for his tips on web, and then we'll finalize with the remaining 4 from my one. But just to start, a quick overview on 2023 and why it's an important year, as indeed they all are. Retail sales are set to increase by over $100 billion in 2023. And over the course of the last 10 years, that's the first time it's increased by over that amount. So not only is it a large industry to begin with, it's only getting bigger. And the number one trend, and a large reason for this specific webinar, is that the number one trend is omnichannel, which very loosely defined is relating to commerce that integrates different methods of interaction. And of course, we've got 2 touch points that we're covering on today. How can they work with one another in order for you to achieve your goals? And then specifically for email marketing, it drove just under 10 billion of revenue in 2022, but that number is only increasing. So within the course of the next 5 years, or just over 4 years, 17.9 billion, which is just under double. So I'll go through these in order, and I'll start with getting your data in order as the first tip to supercharge your growth in 2023. Plainly put, I mean, if you've listened to anything that I've done previously, any of my previous webinars, you'll know I harp on about getting data in order all the time. But there is a good reason for it. It really is that important, because everything that follows it, it can be rendered meaningless if you haven't got this nailed down. ultimately, it's the first step to a successful campaign. And without the correct data, and that extends far beyond just an email address, it's very difficult for you to have anything other than a pretty vague message. If you're sending the same thing to absolutely everyone on your database, there isn't really anything that's relevant and specific to the people that you're talking to. You need to produce a message that is palatable for everyone, but can't necessarily be targeted enough to be as effective as it could be. And that's why, you could collect anything when it comes to data to expand on that. But the question you need to answer is, what should you collect? Because there are countless things you could collect, but you want to, just for time purposes and for effectiveness purposes, narrow down to the ones that are going to produce the best results for you. You can start simple. So you look at data and you might think it's a bit of a minefield and it's quite intimidating, but you can start small in terms of the data that you collect. If you're going to start anywhere, go with basic demographic data. That could be, as an example, location. That opens the door to different messages depending on where someone is. So let's say, as an example, you have both a physical in-person store and you also have an online store. You might go with the assumption that the majority of people who are local to you are more likely to visit you in store. Won't always work out that way, but it's probably a safe assumption for the purpose of this. At which point you can start to tailor your communications. You could send out a specific email for your local audience that is trying to get them in store. But if you know that isn't going to be effective for those that are overseas or just further away in the same country, you might as well push your online store a little bit more. It just gives you that opportunity to tailor your communications. And then you can go to advanced data, which focuses more on consumer behavior and purchase data. This is actually using information that you are getting from your subscribers based on their behavior to tailor that messaging. It can be highly effective when done correctly. It could be pages visited, items purchased, amount spent. The opportunities are endless. And really, the questions to be answered here, as well as what you're collecting, is how you're collecting them. So you've got consent and legitimate interest that you might well have heard as two different terms. You might have a strategy already within your business that specifically looks at one of them. There isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer here as to how you collect your data. If you're collecting data on a consent basis, you're more likely to have an engaged audience because they are explicitly consenting to receiving marketing campaigns from yourself. However, you're likely to have a smaller database. If you're basing it on legitimate interest, then suddenly you can start to use your purchase data even where that explicit consent isn't given. You're probably going to have a slight drop in engagement by doing it that route, but the number of people that you'll be getting out to will be higher. Secondly, implementing automation, which is probably going to be the bulkiest of these 7 that I include. So we're pretty adamant that in today's age, email marketing can no longer be a solely manual process. It has to be a balance between automation and manual. One doesn't really work by itself. So if you're not using automation at the moment, it probably means that either you're doing certain sends more inefficiently than you could be, or you're not doing them at all, in which case you're missing out. So it's one or the other. The complexity of automation, much like I was talking about with data, can vary massively. So automation can often be seen as quite intimidating because of how complex it can be and all of the different strands you can have. But again, you have the opportunity to start small and really develop from there. So if you haven't got anything in place, or you've got something quite basic in place, you don't necessarily need something incredibly complex overnight. You can build it up. The different categories, which you could probably call them, of automation are as follows. There are a couple more on top of this as well, which really just proves how far automation can go. But I'm going to run through these 4 as they seem to be the most relevant in an e-commerce setting. Behavioral automation. I've actually got a point on this later on, so I'll probably briefly touch on these 3. Cart abandonment or basket abandonment, where someone has purchased or someone has gone to purchase something on your site and hasn't followed through with the transaction. because of sending this reminder, a lot of the time it is just we're all leading busy lives and it is genuinely forgetting something, in which case this reminder is a win-win in that you're not ever going to lose on revenue by doing this. Product recommendations. So you've looked for something. So how about this? So this is almost a follow-on from cart abandonment, where potentially they haven't got the interest in something they searched for initially, but maybe they'd be interested in something that is closely linked to the product that they looked for. This is useful because you will know your product lines and your product categories better than anyone, and you know what will link from one to the other better than anyone. So you can start to put together the logic that links these products together. And back in stock. So back in stock is a great customer service point, even if the purchase doesn't come through. So if you go to purchase something, it's not in stock, you can set it up so an email is sent out to the customer, letting them know when it is back in stock. The benefit is, if they still want it by the time it's back in stock, you gain a purchase. If they don't want it by the time it's back in stock, you've still had great customer service and they will still appreciate the email that you've let them know. So regardless of which way you win one way or the other. Nurturing. So you've got a welcome series. So this is where someone has joined your email marketing list. You want to get them introduced to the brand. You want to get them introduced to your values, your ethics, you set expectations about what you're going to send them. This is the perfect opportunity to do so. Sales and competitions is another good one, especially when it comes to promoting urgency. So when something is time sensitive, this is a real encouragement to take part. And the last point in terms of nurturing, content and education, that can very often be neglected, but you should move on from just the hard sell, or at least have these content and education pieces in there as a mixture. This could be blogs, how-to guides. It could be useful videos associated with the product that someone is purchasing. Really, this just adds another element of being connected to the brand and the company outside of just the hard sell. The third category is post-purchase. So this could include order updates. Again, this is another indication that it's not just a grab money and go from a business perspective. You care about making sure that the order gets there on time, any updates that are necessary. Cross-sell is highly linked to product recommendations. The difference being, rather than looking for something and then offering something close to it, someone has actually purchased something, but you're still recommending something that is either close to it or complements what they've already purchased. And then the last one, replenishment. So you might have a certain product that people will tend to buy every year or every 6 months or every 3 months, whatever that time might be. This can be useful to just let them know that, would you consider buying this again? It's been this amount of time since the last one. You're probably due a top up of whatever it is. You have to be careful with this because people are going to consume products at different times, and it's not necessarily going to be the same. So you need to be careful that you're not badgering people before they're done with the current amount of whatever they've purchased. But it can be done, if it's done well, it can be very effective. And the last point, just on loyalty. So feedback, making customers feel valued is essential. But again, by offering the opportunity to feedback, you learn what has happened. So you learn, they feel valued, ticks both boxes. An anniversary, so you could have it set up, and many businesses do, where people input the month in which they're born or the date in which they're born. And you can send them emails on their birthday or the month of their birthday. Again, it's a touch point that shows that that they're not just another number to you. You know about them, and you can offer them something specific. And lastly, re-engagement. So just making sure that the hygiene of your list stays strong, and you're not keeping people on the list who don't want to be, but haven't actually gone through the unsubscribe process. So you can you've either got the opportunity to re-engage them, and if that doesn't work, then cutting them loose to the point where you're not afraid of the unsubscribe, and you can let them go. The third point is increasing personalization. So in terms of what to look for here, segmentation is a great place to start for the more basic forms of personalization. I know I've mentioned this for people who have heard me before, but I'll say it again. Relevancy is the most prevalent part of email marketing when it's done correctly. So if you can be personalized, preferably even down to the person that's receiving, you can make a conversation seem one-on-one, even if the reality is it's 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 100,000 or whatever your database size is. So you can start simple in terms of the demographic data, in terms of segmentation, but you can go much more evolved than that. You can get down to the individual, and those couple of stats at the bottom there should really prove the point in terms of 12% of online consumers actively prefer to shop with a brand due to the use of personalization, as in that is the calling card to going to one brand over another. And almost 3/4 of consumers are getting frustrated when brands send this generic one-size-fits-all communications. And I'll briefly touch on hyper-personalization because this is almost the evolution of that advanced personalization. And it's really effective in an e-commerce capacity. So this could vary in terms of what you do, but as an example, you could have a product where you are able to preview within the email what the person's name would look like embroidered on the product that you're trying to sell. That's one quite specific example, and there's going to be loads of others as well, but it's almost giving them a flavor of what it would be like for them personally to own whatever it is you're trying to push. This can go much further than that as well. It can be used for weather. So if for whatever reason that is useful, or bookings it can be used for. I know there's an example on screen there filled with absolutely horrendous puns, but you can utilize live data and infill that into the email. And the last one before I hand over to the web side of things is setting up behavioral triggers. So this is largely related to the first section of what was under automation, so such as cart abandonment. Triggered emails are based on behavior, and they're a really effective way to drive growth because again, with these automated emails, if they're not set up, you're losing out, and there's no real reason not to set these up. Consumers make a wide variety of behavioral actions as well, so it can often be based on the purchase, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It can be based on opens, it can be based on clicks, it can be on browsing. So it's really not just limited to the purchase data in terms of these behavioral triggers. And I'll hand over to Kashif.
Cool. Thanks so much, Brad. Great points, Amanda.
Thank you.
So I have a few slides here. We're talking about UI and UX and some bits and strategy as well. What we could do this year to kind of power up your e-commerce for yourselves, if you're a merchant, or for your clients, right? So let's get started. It's my first slide. So I don't know if you've been around, you probably have heard the term mobile first. Now, it's a design strategy that suggests that we start designing for the smaller screens first, and then we scale up depending on what you're designing for, a tablet or for a desktop. And the reason for that is when we started talking about mobile first, the mobile penetration was kind of growing. It was rapidly growing, but the UX was not really keeping up with that growth. So we wanted designers to tackle that mobile design first and then scale it up because it was easier to manage like that. But in 2023, mobile usage has grown significantly. In the UK itself, 60% of all consumers use the smartphone for their online shopping. Now, in my experience with some of our clients, that mobile share is up to 80%. Mobile design was originally, mobile first was actually a design strategy, but now I think it should be your overall strategy, right? Some experience like biometric authentication, augmented reality, voice search, voice recognition. These things are easily available and they're easily possible to do on mobile as such, right? So laptops and desktops are great for creating, and a lot of us from the tech side of things or from the creation side of things, We use larger screens to create these websites, but don't forget that the consumption for marketing and for your material for websites and all the transactions and all the sales, they happen on mobile. So before you plan your next feature, remember mobile first. From that angle, explore the possibility from that perspective. All right, Ben, if you can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So navigation and search are essentially the key pillars for product discovery on websites. So navigation actually has just gotten more and more complex with every passing year. I mean, if you remember the old times, we used to have 5 links, and now we have mega menus with 3 tiers. And to give you an example, the one that you see on the left side, that's from Boots. It's got, I don't know, I have never counted, it looks like 1,000 links there. So essentially, and that's desktop view. And then when you bring it down to mobile, again, I've shown you examples of, how navigation, the same navigation is kind of approached from different ways. So there are 2 real problems here. There are now so many ways of doing navigation UI. Users, when they come to your website, one of the first things they have to learn is how to navigate your website, because it's different for every website, right? But the real problem here is over-categorization, that we actually have so many categories that we want to show to our users, right? According to Baymard Institute, is one of the premier institute that does a lot of research on UX and designs, over-categorization of your catalog can actually lead to abandonment, right? So like users find an overload of categories a big struggle to use. And this is like, I'm one of those users. If I see something like the Boots navigation with so many options, I will actually just directly jump to the search, right? So my suggestion here as a designer would be that if you can avoid the 3rd level of navigation in favor of having filters on the category pages, it would resolve this issue for most users, right? What it would do is actually delay the decision-making in favor of action. So when somebody comes to the navigation and actually makes a click, instead of spending time choosing where to click, right, you will get a click, number one, you will get a page view, you will get engagement, and at the end, the user would not be struggling to figure out where to go. So there's a win-win on both sides. Now, on the other side of this, there's search. Now, search UI and UX has been consistent since the beginning. You've had the same search box with that same magnifying glass icon since ever, right? And in 2023, you can really power up your search, right? From the search box itself, and I've not used the right example here, but instead of saying search, which everyone seems to use, you can have a better search term that you can put here. So that can be encouraging. So you can say, try bestsellers, or try what's new, try sale, right? Or search for something. You can push a category in the search box. So that really, when people look at a search box, there's more to do than just know where the search box is, right? Then when somebody clicks on the search box, don't waste that link, all right? If you can show a pop-up there, you can show more, you can show the popular search terms that other people are using. You can show your best-selling items. You can show new products. If this user is coming back again, maybe you can show some history from the last visit. Also, another trend that's happening right now is called a full screen takeover. So click on the search, you see a pop-up that takes over the whole screen, and you see more options in because you have more area to show things. When somebody starts typing, and a lot of us are terrible at spellings, be tolerant of that. Try to find the closest match and show the results. If possible, allow for voice search. Now, this again works well on mobile devices because you already have the mic in place, and you can immediately start the voice search. You can suggest synonyms. So, for example, if you sell coats on your website and somebody types jacket, right, have that connection already made in a product description. So when somebody types jackets, show the right kind of things that the person is looking for. Then if you can, provide search as you type, where as I type a few letters, I start seeing options, I start seeing what's already available for those letters there, right? Then for the search results itself, focus on relevancy. What I mean by that is if somebody's looking for jackets in winter, show them warmer jackets. But if they're looking for jackets in summer, show them lighter jackets. Okay, that made sense, right? Show categorized results with products. So when you see the result sets, show products, show categories that match the term, even blog articles if you have on your website. That really helps sometimes. Then one big UI tip here is you can highlight the search terms. So if I'm looking for jackets, then highlight everywhere on the search result where the word jacket appears. So that's very easy to scan. You know where jacket is being, is what's the context of that word there. And then last, provide more filters so the users can really drill down further on that thing. All right, so that's on search and navigation. Ben, if you can go to the next one, please. Thank you. Make checkouts friendlier, as I'm saying that. But why do you have coupons on there? So according to shopper.com, Americans spend 13 million hours per week searching for online discounts. 13 million. Brits are far behind. We spend 2 million hours per week, still big number. 2 million hours per week looking for online discounts. However, half of the time that we spend doing this, the coupon or looking for discounts, is actually wasted because most of these coupon codes are invalid, but they've been floating around for a very long time. Nobody's taken the effort to clean them up. So it's just there, it exists there. So now, for one of our clients, 44% of their sales were made using coupon codes. While doing user behavior review for them, I observed that people, when they come to the basket page, they suddenly go missing, and there's a gap of up to 6 minutes on an average on that page. And then the user comes back and they start putting coupon codes. So, what we assume that at that point, the user has gone, he's left the website, he's gone on Google to find whatever coupon codes are available, come back, and now they're trying, whatever coupon code they found. The 6 minute time gap is a huge one. Anything can happen in 6 minutes, especially during checkout for e-commerce. That's a big number. Then when the users come back, they give it a shot. They spend another 3 minutes trying those codes out. And a lot of times what happens if the codes don't work, in some instances, we saw that the user would just abandon that purchase, right? They get frustrated that they're not getting that extra 5% discount. So forget, I'm not going to buy this anymore, right? So to tackle this, what our client did was they actually had the active coupon code displayed on the basket page itself. So you see the example here on the left-hand side, you see that save 10%, there's a coupon code underneath there. And what it did was when people came to the basket page, they would just automatically type in that coupon code, get that 10% discount. They won't go hunting or looking for coupon codes on Google or some other place, right? This way, my clients were able to cut down the checkout time in half. It's a big win. And we are now actually developing more on this idea with them, right? Let's look at express payments, right? And I want to talk about credit cards first before we talk about express payments. To give you some context, I mean, credit cards, they were the faster alternative to cash payments for a physical transaction. So instead of taking money out of your wallet, counting it, giving to somebody, getting the change back, right? Counting the change, putting it back in your pocket. To save all that time, credit cards just made things easier. Swipe it on the machine, your transaction is done, take your item, go away. Now you take the same credit card, you want to use it digitally on a website, you enter 16 digits first. Very difficult to find where they are, to make sure you're typing them right. Then you enter the dates, then you enter the secret code, and then there's going to be a confirmation. So now the convenience of having a credit card in a physical transaction completely goes away when you're using the same credit card on a website. So, when people say checkout can be stressful, it's just the payment part that's the stressful part, right? So this year, make sure that you have popular payment methods. You can see the popular ones that are being used, and everybody's pretty much familiar with it. Just make sure you have it available on your website. They're very easy. They're very fast to process. They're definitely safer than using credit cards online, and they're extremely handy because you don't have to go look for a credit card in the middle of checkout. If you're buying something on your phone, these payment methods are already available on your phone right there. And from a merchant point of view, it really shortens the checkout process. You don't even have to enter a lot of information during checkout. Just use your express payment, a lot of information is automatically supplied to the merchants. All right. Ben, if you can go to the next one, please. Thank you. In 2003, you can bring a bit of motion on your website. The browsers are very capable, very powerful right now. Even the phone browsers are doing very well. What motion does essentially, it attracts, it holds attention far more than static styling, right? It can show continuity. If you have transitions, you can know from where you started, where you're going, the whole continuous thing, and it kind of brings delight to users, right? In the first example, you can see the motion is actually providing additional details, right? You can see how the wheel cap looks when it's spinning. I feel it's something like this is really difficult to describe with words, like what the motion is going to look like, but it's very easy to convey just by showing that animation. Similarly, even if you want to show, describe how a fabric was fall or how it will look when somebody walks in it, it's difficult to describe it in words. But then when you have some video showing that, it's just, easy. It's a dimension that, it really helps at product description level. In the second example, you see what's happening. Somebody clicks on a button, you see the small butterflies coming out, the sparkles coming out there, right? It is more than, I feel it's more than just confirmation that you get there. It just almost feels like gratitude. From the merchant side, like it's like a thank you for clicking on that button, like more emotion there. There's also micro interactions, which are even smaller than the ones that you see on the right side, and they're great for acknowledging an action. So click on a button, something happens there, and the user feels good about it, right? And lastly, you can only do it for the sake of delight, right? There's nothing about bringing a little smile to the user's face, right? In that case, the search box, when you click on that little icon, changes into more things, does a bit of animation, right? No real good need for it, just makes you feel good about it. Right? What I want you to take care is make sure that it is not distracting, number one, and number two, that it is on your brand. And if you can't really make a custom one, you don't have the right design skills in your in-house, there are plenty of these things available online. You can use stuff like this company called Lottie that does a lot of animation. There's GIFs available, there's CSS and JavaScript animations already available online. You can pick and plug them in here. Next one, please, Jen. Then let's talk about 3D AR, right? Adding an interactive 3D model to the product page kind of replicates like a real life in-store experience of sorts, right? Now, 3D models create great interactions. They lead to higher drive-in conversions, and they can actually reduce your product returns. Now, on the left, you can see the difference in materials. You see how when the shoe rotates, you can tell how the light falls on the material. You can see what different materials are being used on the left side. Now, if you combine that with AR, like in this case of the air fryer or rice cooker or whatever it is, you can see how it fits on your kitchen area. See how much space it's going to take. It like almost like it's already in your house. Now, again, I'm going to tie it back to my original point that AR experiences are currently only possible with your mobile devices. So think mobile first with your features. And I feel any investment in this area is going to pay off. Like all things considered, 3D models are actually less expensive than traditional photo shoots, right? And with companies like Meta and Apple, I'm sure Google and Microsoft are not far behind. They're already investing billions of dollars in 3D technology. It is going to become the norm very soon, right? And next one, please, Ben. Thank you. And lastly, I want to talk about continuous monitoring, right? Keep a pulse on the customer sentiment online. Read online what people are saying about your brand. If you have social proof widgets on your website, monitor them continuously. Make sure they're not displaying anything negative about your brand, about your company. Once you have a sense of what's happening online, check it. Check the user behavior. Run user surveys on the website. Get first-hand information from the user directly, validate that sentiment with observing user behaviors on tools like Hotjar and Mouseflow, see how users are actually performing on your website. Based on that, create a solution and then do an A/B test, right? See how it actually works in real life. If it works, then great, you have a good solution. If it doesn't, there's so much to learn from that failure. You will get so much data, you will be able to make better solutions from there. The tools like Google Optimize and a bunch of other tools available from Adobe itself that let you do a very good A/B test on existing solutions. But keep this continuous, see how your things are performing. Again, check how the sentiment is based on that. And lastly, just before I hand it back to Ben, to the next slide, please. Thank you. I feel these two design trends are going to be big this year. There's summary grids. We have seen Apple push this last year. It's not picked up as much, but I think this year it's really going to, make it big. I'm going to definitely try this for one of our clients. And on the right-hand side, there's gradient text, which, nice big text with, instead of having a single color, we'll have gradient from left to right, and it looks really beautiful. It's one of the things, again, we'll be having more on websites. So that's it from my side. I will hand it back to Ben. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Some really wonderful insights in that. That was really educational.
Thank you.
I'll continue with the final 3 of these 7 tips, then we'll open the floor to any questions and then wrap things up. Promoting social proof is the 5th tip that we have for you here. So generally speaking, it's really important to show the happiness of others when it comes to purchasing your product or service. So people want to relate with others. People want to get validation for what they're about to do. There is that element of trust. Someone has been able to enjoy the product that you purchased, and people want to know about it. And 89% of purchasers won't take action until they have read some sort of review. So realistically, why should you wait for people to search things out when you can take it to them? It's almost somewhat related to what Kashif was saying in terms of coupons. You can actively go out there and find it and put the burden on the customer, or take it to them in the first place. And you can do the same thing with reviews. They could go and search for these positive reviews, but if you're confident and you're able to put a case together for why your product's great, put it front and center within email marketing. And in terms of other promotion of social proof, you can definitely link up social media here to be effective. So you can take traditional social media icons and really take them one step further. So within email marketing, have dynamic content blocks that promote what you have on your social channels. And it's a way to subtly promote something that you haven't necessarily primarily put the email out there for. So we know that real estate within email is limited and should be limited to make sure you're focused on 1 or 2 particular things. But certainly where you introduce some sort of dynamic block that previews what you've got on, let's say, Instagram, you might be able to time that perfectly where you're promoting a different product on Instagram at the time that an email is going out. And that way it's going to feature at the bottom of the email within this block as well. It's just the evolution of those traditional blocks from where they are at the moment. Outside of live social feeds and outside of product ratings and reviews, there's also popularity and scarcity messaging as well. Real fear of missing out. Urgency works incredibly well within email. And user-generated content is important here as well, because it will be slightly dependent on the brand and on the product. But if you know that exists, usually on social media, this is a great way to feature that and again, show off what you're able to do. Number 6, automate transactional updates. So this is, again, highly linked to the automation point that was made earlier. But I'm really adamant about this first point, that a purchase being made isn't the final step of a transaction. It is absolutely the first step of the next transaction. And I think it should always be viewed that way. I'm sure I won't need to tell a lot of the people that are joining today that retaining business and getting repeat business is far easier than it is to go out there and find new business. So make it easier for yourself. Give yourself the best opportunity of retaining these customers by, again, just making sure it's a cycle rather than a point A to point B and then nothing more after that point B. Post-purchase transactional emails, they are key to ensuring that a customer continues to have trust in your brand. Again, it's just going beyond the sale. And again, it's a great opportunity to gain the feedback from the recipient. I already spoke earlier about what I think are the benefits of getting that feedback, both for the consumer and how they feel valued, and for the business, and in terms of understanding what's going right and what's going wrong. And then I'll close off this with reviewing results, aptly placed in 7th of the 7, not because it's the least important, but because usually it's the last stage. And you can't expect your channel to maintain, whether it's email or anything else, to maintain continuous growth without reviewing the results. So I believe that you can't just apply things that you believe to be best practice and then absolutely expect them to work 100% of the time. Now, usually the combination of best practice and knowing your audience is going to mean you have a pretty high confidence value that when you introduce something, it's likely going to work, but it's not definitely going to work. It may be a 90% or 80% confidence interval. It's important to review the results because email marketing can be odd sometimes. Sometimes things don't go how you think they will go. You think you know everything about your database, you put something in place, and then you test it and you review the results, and it's worked the complete opposite way, which really is the beauty of testing, because you can't get to that point without reviewing the results. And go beyond the open rate and click-through rate, because whilst both of those statistics are definitely valuable, they are also often referred to as vanity metrics because they're not necessarily what the end goal of the email marketing campaign is. The goal of an open is to then get a click. The goal of a click is often then to get a purchase. So look beyond just the open rate and click-through rate, particularly when it comes to Google Analytics and revenue, because that's going to tell you what you should be focusing on in the future. But even within email marketing metrics itself, rather than just click-through rate, start to look at click-to-open rate as well, because they both have benefits to looking at them. Click-through rate is far more often used, and it's, I guess, the truer statistics. So click-through rate is specifically looking at how many people have clicked on an email versus how many have been sent it or how many have it's been delivered to, which is great. And it will tell you an overall amount versus the size of your database. But actually, if you're trying to work out what's effective within the email itself, what's working image-wise, copy-wise, then really only the people that have opened the email are important to finding out what's working and what's not working, because anyone who hasn't opened it hasn't been able to see the content. So you'll often find that sometimes a click-through rate might look pretty good, but actually if the open rate also massively exceeds your expectations, is the conversion rate actually that good? It's these sorts of things that you can only look at when you start to review the results. And a few key takeaways from all of the bits that I've mentioned. E-commerce email marketing is at its best when relevancy is the heart of all campaigns. I could not have that here as part of the free because it's absolutely true. Basic levels of personalization isn't quite enough anymore. So the days of just utilizing a first name are really past us now. Not to say that you shouldn't do that, but it should definitely not be the only thing that is done. Evolve from just that and see what else you can do in terms of the behavioral elements that we spoke about earlier. And finally, the future of e-commerce, it does require this manual and automated balance. There are so many automation options. I ran through 12. I could have ran through 36 if I wanted to, but you need to really tailor what it is exactly that's going to work for you specifically. Pick out 3 or 4 or however many you think is achievable and focus on those to begin with, because there's nothing stopping you evolving that once you've mastered the ones you've looked at first. At this point, it'd be brilliant to grab any questions that you have, if indeed there are any. I know there was one question regarding regarding one of your sections, Kashif, about coupons and how the distractions of them, and whether they can be overly distracting on that final page of getting the checkout. How do you ensure that it's prevalent enough that it's noticed, but not overly distracting to the point where someone doesn't know what to do?
I think the size makes a difference, like how much real estate actually you're giving to that image that talks about the coupon code. But to be honest, the challenges that we kind of discussed with my client about this is what, so where it really creates a problem is it's going to eat into your margins. So you have your coupon codes right there in front for people to use. It's going to bring down some number because you're not selling at full price there, right? So essentially you want to use it during like the sales season where people are expecting a lower price. People are going to look, if you don't offer it, people are going to look online, they're going to go to social media, you're going to go on Google, and there are basically hundreds of other sites that kind of have these coupon codes readily available, right? So how do you prevent that from happening? So literally it's a balance that you want to bring in. Do you really want to lose the customer for those 6 minutes there where they go hunting for coupon codes, or you want to make sure that they find something right there where they want to enter the coupon code, they find the coupon code itself, they type it in or click a button that gets added automatically, and they continue with the checkout process. So you don't want to basically lose the customer, you don't want to lose the sale, you want to make sure they convert, give them the right tools, and the coupon code that point is a tool that you're basically handing them. Yeah.
Great, thank you for that. There was one other question about it came off what you said earlier about mobile versus mobile versus others, including desktop, and the question about whether it applies the same way in email marketing. The answer to that is pretty much yes. So you showed the 60-40 split there. That's largely in line with what you'd see in terms of email marketing open rates as well. Certainly 60-40 is probably the lower end of what is considered the norm. It's probably closer to 70-30.
I think it gets averaged out. I think it's different for every industry.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's e-commerce, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it at 75-25. I've seen it at 60-40, and certainly within that range. So when people ask, in terms of email specifically, but clearly for anything when it comes to design, should it be mobile? Should it be a mobile first attitude to building stuff out? The answer is absolutely yes, because if you're not, you're skipping
missing
more
out.
than half of your audience.
Yeah. I mean, clearly the mobile device is far more capable today than it was like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, right? There's so many additional sensors and tools that you get access to when you're using mobile phone. So definitely that should be part of your strategy.
Absolutely. Well, I think at 48 minutes, we've done all right for a 45-minute webinar. You always have the fear that you're accidentally going to go on for an hour and a half. So we've done all right in that case. Just wanted to quickly share this last screen because if you do have any questions or would like to get in touch generally with either one of us after this webinar, our contact details are there. But outside of that, I think that's everything for the webinar. Thank you so much to yourself, Kashif, for joining me on this. There were some really wonderful insights in that, a lot of which was brand new to me as well. So it was a good learning experience for me as well as all the attendees.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, and you had great points. A lot of data. I really loved it. Great points. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for your time to join us today.
Yeah, massively appreciate all of your time. And we'll see you wherever it is next. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.